One of the more interesting storylines in Mid-South recruiting region is just how impressive Ole Miss has been in recruiting the state of Mississippi this cycle. Ole Miss has, made a reputation, I guess, of recruiting nationwide. They like to go into other parts of the country and bring in talent, as Mississippi State usually does a better job of traditionally, getting those in-state guys to stay home, especially along the defensive line. However, that narrative has completely flipped this cycle. Ole Miss is flat out dominating in that regard, both in-state and in-state defensive line recruiting. Headlined by five-star defensive lineman Kamarion Franklin. The Rebels are bringing in a very impressive class up front. They got him, Franklin in the boat. They have Jeffrey Rush, four-star defensive lineman, Cameron Beavers, a Rivals 250 defensive lineman. They have William Eccles, a prospect that's hot. His stock is hot. Was just offered by Alabama, a player that can play either side of the ball, but the Rebels want him on the defensive line. They have him in the class, a to riser in the next Rivals rankings update. So a really impressive job by Ole Miss. And then you look at what Mississippi State is dealing with. They've missed out on some of their top targets, especially along the defensive line in the state. But then Braylon Burnside just backed off his commitment to the Bulldogs. Zach Arnett, his first season at the helm in Starkville hasn't gone very well. So there's some uneasiness in Starkville. They do have Robles 100 wide receiver J.J. Harrell still in the boat, saying all the right things. Four-star defensive lineman Terrence Hibler remains committed. They do have some interesting prospects as well in the class. However, Ole Miss has really done a great job of recruiting inside the state, but specifically the defensive line. That's where the Rebels have struggled in years past. Usually they always get the skill talent, wide receivers, DBs, quarterbacks, all that stuff in the state of Mississippi. Whereas the Bulldogs have, cleaned up traditionally along the offensive line, especially the defensive line, where they've made a, name for themselves, turning out defensive line talent to the NFL. But like I said, Ole Miss has really flipped that on its head this cycle, and that says a lot about Lane Kiffin and the staff as they make this state a priority. Really take advantage of those relationships and build a roster. In the trenches.